They hid from you what Kolbe saw before he died, and it wasn't by accident. It was August 14th, 1941. The starvation bunker, Auschwitz Block 11. Kolbe was on his 14th day, without water, without food. His body was failing, but his mind was elsewhere. The Nazi guards expected him to simply die. But what they didn't know was that, in those final moments, something extraordinary was happening. A vision, a revelation, a warning that would change everything. And do you know what's most disturbing? This vision, it wasn't about the past. It was about now, about you, about what's coming. You feel it, don't you? That unease in your chest when you look at the news. That feeling that something is out of place in the world, as if an invisible storm is brewing, and you're the only one who notices. It's not paranoia. It's not anxiety. It's something deeper. It's your spirit recognizing the signs that Kolbe saw 80 years ago. But let me tell you something that will send chills down your spine. What Kolbe saw in that bunker wasn't just about war. It wasn't just about persecution. It was about a time when faith itself would be attacked from within. A time when the most religious people would be the most lost. A time when truth would be called a lie, and lies would be worshipped as truth. Sound familiar? Because Kolbe didn't just die as a martyr. He died as a prophet, and his prophecy is fulfilling itself now, at this very moment, as you hear these words. Pay attention. When Kolbe founded that monastery in Nagasaki in 1930, everyone said he was crazy. Why build in the middle of the mountain? Why not in the city, where there were more people to evangelize? But Kolbe insisted. He said he had received a vision, a clear instruction. And do you know what happened 15 years later? The atomic bomb devastated Nagasaki. 200,000 people died. But Kolbe's monastery, it remained intact. Every brick in place, every monk alive. Coincidence? There are no coincidences in the life of a saint. Kolbe knew. He always knew. And in the starvation bunker, in his last conscious moments, he had the complete vision, the entire map, the plan of what was to come. And I'm going to reveal every detail to you. But first, I need you to understand something. You are not here by accident. You didn't click on this video out of curiosity. You were guided, directed, chosen to hear this. Because Kolbe's vision included you as well. He saw the times we would be living in. He saw the confusion that would grip minds. He saw the fear that would paralyze hearts. He saw the division that would shatter families. And he saw something more. He saw the people who would be called to resist, the souls who would receive the spiritual weapons to face what's coming, the guardians of truth in times of darkness. You are one of them. But before I tell you what he saw about you, I need to explain how this vision came to him, because it wasn't a common dream. It wasn't a hallucination of hunger. It was something much more real, much more terrible, and much more hopeful. In the early days in the bunker, Kolbe still spoke, still comforted the other prisoners, still led prayers. But as the days went by and thirst consumed his throat, he began to enter a different state. The other prisoners later recounted that he began to glow, literally. A soft light emanated from his face, even in the total darkness of the bunker, and he began to speak things that no one understood. Names of places that didn't exist, future dates, events that hadn't yet happened. Franciszek Gajowniczek, the man Kolbe saved, said years later that it was during this period that Kolbe received what he called the 3 revelations, 3 consecutive visions that showed the future of humanity. The first vision was about the war that was happening. Kolbe saw the end of Nazism. He saw Hitler defeated. He saw the gas chambers being destroyed. He saw freedom returning to Europe. The second vision was about a greater war, a spiritual war, Kolbe saw invisible forces organizing against faith. He saw truths being distorted. He saw temples being emptied. He saw an entire generation growing up without knowing God. But it was the third vision that brought him to tears, because the third vision was about victory. Kolbe saw Mary, not as a distant apparition, but as a queen preparing her army. He saw millions of people around the world receiving a special strength, a special protection, a special mission. And do you know who was in that army? Ordinary people, simple people, people that no one would consider special, people exactly like you. Kolbe saw that in the end times, Mary wouldn't choose only the powerful, she would choose the humble, those who have faith even when everything seems lost, those who seek the truth even when it's hidden. And he saw more. He saw that these people would receive signs, small miracles, confirmations that they are on the right path, unexplainable protection, clear guidance in moments of confusion. You've experienced this, haven't you? That moment when you prayed and something impossible happened. That coincidence that was too specific to be a coincidence. That intuition that saved you from a dangerous situation. These are the signs that you are part of the plan. But Kolbe saw something more disturbing in the third vision. He saw that many of these chosen people wouldn't know they were chosen. They would live thinking they are ordinary, thinking they are insignificant, thinking their faith makes no difference. And that's why they needed to be awakened. That's when Kolbe understood his true mission. It wasn't just to die as a martyr. It was to leave a legacy that could awaken the chosen ones at the right time. It was to plant seeds that would blossom decades later when people needed them most. And do you know how he did that? He left instructions, not in books, not in letters, but in methods, in practices, in rituals that carry his spiritual strength to this day. Methods that I'm going to teach you now, because if you've come this far, if you're listening to this right now, it's because your time to awaken has come. It's your time to understand who you really are, and it's your time to receive the weapons that Kolbe left for you. But I need to warn you, once you know these things, there's no going back. Once you awaken, you become responsible for protecting your family, responsible for spreading the truth, responsible for being a light in the darkness that is coming. Are you ready for this responsibility? Because what I'm going to reveal to you now has changed the lives of thousands of people, and it will change yours too. The first instruction that Kolbe left was about awakening. He said that when the time of darkness arrived, Mary would send a sign to each chosen person, a personal sign, intimate, unmistakable. For some, it would be a recurring dream. For others, a word heard at the right moment. For many, it would be an inexplicable unease that would lead them to seek spiritual answers. And for you, what was the sign? Think carefully. In the last few weeks, in the last few months. What brought you here? What made you click on this video? What's keeping you listening even knowing you should be doing other things? This is not a coincidence. It's the awakening. And Kolbe taught that when the awakening happens, a person has a very specific window of time to act, a unique opportunity to connect with the power being offered. Miss that window, and it may take years for another opportunity to appear. That's why you're feeling this urgency, this need to keep listening, this feeling that something important is happening right now. Your spirit recognizes that this is the moment. But let me tell you how Kolbe discovered this. Because this wasn't just a vision he had in the starvation bunker. It was the result of years of spiritual preparation, years of practices that connected him with realities most people don't even dream exist. When Kolbe was a child, he had his first vision of Mary. She appeared to him holding two crowns, one white representing purity, one red representing martyrdom, and she asked which he would choose. Kolbe, at only 10 years old, said, "I choose both." It was at that moment that his destiny was sealed. Mary smiled and disappeared, but before she left, she whispered something in his ear. something he carried for the rest of his life, something that guided every decision he made. And do you know what she said? When the world is darkest, you will be the light that awakens my soldiers, soldiers of Mary. That's how Kolbe referred to the chosen people. They weren't just ordinary faithful, they were spiritual warriors, ordinary people with an extraordinary mission. And each soldier would have a special gift, a spiritual ability that would be activated at the right moment. For some, it would be the gift of protection, the ability to create invisible shields around family, home, loved ones. For others, it would be the gift of healing, the ability to bring relief and restoration where medicine fails. Some would receive the gift of prophecy, the ability to discern the signs of the times and guide others. Others would receive the gift of conversion, the ability to touch hardened hearts and bring people back to God. And there are those who would receive the rarest gift of all, the gift of resilience, the ability to stand firm in faith even when everything around them crumbles, the ability to be a rock in times of storm. What is your gift? Kolbe taught that a person discovers this through specific signs, experiences that begin to repeat in their life, situations where they feel inexplicably strong or protected, moments when words come out of their mouth and they don't even know where they came from. Have you experienced this? Have you had moments when you felt a strength that wasn't your own? Have you lived through situations where you should have been destroyed but came out unscathed? Have you spoken words that touched someone's heart in a way you didn't even expect? These are the signs of your gift manifesting. And Kolbe saw in a third vision that a time would come when all these gifts would be needed at the same time, a time when the soldiers of Mary would have to unite, to recognize each other, to strengthen each other mutually. That time is now. That's why you're being awakened, not just to receive spiritual power, but to find others, to form the network of protection that Mary is weaving around the world. And do you know how this will happen? Through signs. Kolbe said that the soldiers of Mary would recognize each other through specific signs, words that only they would understand, symbols that only they would perceive, practices that only they would know. And the first sign is this, the miraculous medal. Kolbe carried a miraculous medal since childhood. Even in Auschwitz, even in the starvation bunker, it was with him. The Nazis tried to take it away several times, but somehow it always returned. It wasn't just a medal, it was a portal, a direct connection with Mary. And Kolbe taught that anyone who carried this medal with true faith would become invisible to the forces of evil. Not physically invisible, but spiritually protected in a way that enemies couldn't touch them. And there's more. Kolbe discovered that the miraculous medal has specific properties when used in certain ways, when touched during prayer, when kissed in moments of danger, when held while repeating certain words, words that he whispered to the other prisoners in the bunker, words that saved lives, words that opened impossible doors. These words are the second sign, and they work to this day. But here's the part that will chill you. Kolbe said that in the end times, many people would have these medals, but few would know how to use them correctly. Few would know the right words. Few would understand the power they were carrying. And so it would be necessary for someone to teach, someone who had received the complete instructions, someone who knew not only the words, but the correct way to pronounce them, the right time to use them, the correct intention to activate them. Do you want to learn these words? Because they are not just prayers, they are spiritual keys, codes that open portals of protection, passwords that activate celestial forces. And when you know how to use them, your life will change irreversibly. Problems that seemed impossible will begin to resolve themselves. Protection will appear in ways you never imagined. Guidance will arrive exactly when you need it most. But there's a condition. Kolbe was very clear about this. These words only work for those who are willing to become soldiers of Mary, for those who are willing to use this power not only for themselves, but to protect others, for those who are willing to become guardians of the truth. Are you willing? Because if you are, then it's time to know the first key word, the word that Kolbe constantly whispered in the bunker, the word that kept him connected with Mary even in total darkness. The word that can change everything for you too. The word is niepokalana. It means immaculate in Polish. But when Kolbe pronounced it, it wasn't just a word. It was an invocation, a direct call for Mary to descend and take control of the situation. In the starvation bunker, while the other prisoners groaned in pain, Kolbe whispered, Niepokalana, immaculate, immaculate. And something happened. The atmosphere shifted. Despair transformed into peace. Fear dissolved. Even the Nazi guards felt it and grew uneasy, because this word, when spoken with true faith, doesn't just call upon Mary. It brings her physically present. Kolbe taught that Niepokalana functions as a spiritual master key, but it must be used correctly. It cannot be shouted. It cannot be repeated mechanically. It must be whispered with total love, with complete surrender, and it must be done at specific times. The first moment is upon waking. Before even opening your eyes, before even rising from bed, you whisper 3 times, Niepokalana, Niepokalana, Niepokalana. Kolbe said this creates an invisible shield around you that lasts the entire day. Nothing bad can touch you when you begin your day this way. The second moment is during danger, when you sense something is wrong, when you perceive negative forces at work, when you are being spiritually attacked. In these moments, you don't scream. You don't panic. You simply whisper, Niepokalana, and Mary comes instantly, with all her might. But there's a third moment, the most powerful of all. And this Kolbe only taught to his closest prisoners, those he knew would survive to tell the tale. The third moment is at midnight. Exactly at midnight. You light a white candle, hold your miraculous medal, and repeat Niepokalana 33 times. Why 33? For the years Christ lived on earth. Each repetition is an offering. Each Niepokalana is a surrender. And on the 33rd Niepokalana, something extraordinary happens. Mary doesn't just come, she stays. She establishes spiritual residence where you prayed. Your home becomes her territory. Your room becomes her sanctuary. And when Mary takes up residence, evil cannot enter. Kolbe tested this many times, even in Auschwitz, even in the hell on earth. The places where he performed this prayer became different, safer, more peaceful, more protected. And you know what's most impressive? This protection extended to others. Franciszek Gajowniczek, the man Kolbe saved, recounted that after the martyrdom, he began this nightly prayer. And throughout the war, nothing bad happened to his family. Bombs fell around his house, but never on his house. Soldiers invaded all the neighboring properties, but never his. Coincidence? No. Mary's protection, activated through the words Kolbe taught, and it works to this day. I will tell you real-life accounts of people who practiced this and witnessed impossible results. Teresa, from Chicago. She was being evicted from her home, had 3 young children and nowhere to go. On the last day before eviction, someone taught her Kolbe's midnight prayer. She did exactly as I explained. White candle, miraculous medal, 33 Niepokalanas at midnight. The next day, the landlord called, cancelling the eviction, said he'd had a dream of a lady dressed in blue who asked him to have mercy. He wasn't religious, knew nothing about Mary, but the dream was so vivid, he changed his mind. Teresa not only kept her home, the landlord lowered her rent. John from Los Angeles, he had terminal cancer. Doctors gave him 3 months to live. The family was preparing for the worst. Someone told him about Kolbe and the midnight prayer. John was skeptical but desperate. He decided to try. First night, nothing. Second night, nothing. Third night, he felt an inexplicable peace. Fourth night, the pain lessened. Fifth night, he managed to eat for the first time in weeks. On the ninth day, he went for a checkup. The tumor had shrunk 60%. Doctors couldn't explain it, talked about spontaneous remission. But John knew the truth. Maria, from Miami. Her daughter disappeared 6 months prior. Police had no leads. Family devastated by grief. Marriage falling apart. Maria started Kolbe's prayer every night. And not just the midnight prayer. She began whispering Nyepokalana throughout the day, at work, in traffic, before sleeping. On the 21st day, she was walking down the street when she felt an invisible force pulling her to the right. She followed her intuition, turned down a street she'd never seen before. And at the end of the street, in an abandoned house, she found her daughter, alive, safe, protected by Our Lady the entire time. These aren't isolated cases. There are hundreds, thousands, ordinary people who discovered the power of the words Kolbe left behind. But there's something you need to understand. These words aren't magic, they're spiritual. The difference is huge. Magic attempts to force the supernatural to obey human will. Spirituality surrenders to the divine will and allows the supernatural to act freely. When you say Nyepokalana, you're not ordering anything, you're surrendering. You're saying, Mary, I trust you. Do what's best for me. And Mary always does what's best, even when it doesn't seem like it, even when it takes time, even when it comes differently than you expected. Kolbe understood this perfectly. That's why he maintained peace even in the starvation bunker. That's why he could die serenely, because he knew everything was in her hands. And now you know too. But Kolbe left more instructions, because he saw in the third vision that the end times wouldn't just be about individual protection. It would be about collective resistance, about Mary's church organizing against the forces of darkness. And for that, he left the second method, the method of total consecration. It's not the consecration you may already know. It's not just a beautiful prayer. It's a radical act of spiritual warfare. It's you becoming Mary's complete property, so she can use you as a weapon against evil. Kolbe made this consecration when he was 20. And from that moment on, his life became a series of impossible miracles. The tuberculosis that should have killed him didn't. The Nazi persecutions that destroyed thousands of religious people couldn't stop him. The tortures in Auschwitz Block 11 that broke far stronger men couldn't touch his faith, because he wasn't himself anymore. He was Mary's property, and no one touches her property without permission. And the consecration Kolbe created is different from all others, because it includes something no other includes, the combat clause. In the traditional consecration, you surrender yourself to Mary for protection and sanctification. In Kolbe's consecration, you surrender yourself to Mary to be used as a soldier in the spiritual warfare against evil. It's more dangerous, but it's infinitely more powerful. Because when you make this consecration, you're not just asking for protection. You're enlisting in her army. You're offering yourself to be sent to the most difficult battles. You're saying you want to be used to liberate others. And Mary accepts this offer immediately. From the moment you make this consecration, your life changes completely. You begin to be sent to specific places, to encounter specific people, to speak specific words, to do things you would never do on your own. You become her instrument, an extension of her will on earth. And do you know the result? Miracles become normal in your life. Not because you are special, but because she is special. And now you are hers. Kolbe explained that there's a huge difference between those who simply pray to Mary and those who become her property. Those who pray to her sometimes receive graces. Those who become her property live in permanent grace. But there's a condition. Kolbe's consecration can only be done once in a lifetime, and it only works if you're willing to accept any consequence, any mission she gives you, any place she sends you, any person she wants you to help, any sacrifice she asks for. Are you willing? Because if you are, I will teach you the exact words of the consecration, the same words Kolbe used, the same words that transformed a young Polish man into one of the most powerful saints in history. But before I teach you, I need to tell you what happens after, because Kolbe was very clear about this. His consecration is not for people who want a tranquil life. It's for people who want a victorious life. The difference is that in a tranquil life, you avoid problems. In a victorious life, you confront problems with supernatural power. In a tranquil life, you pray that nothing bad happens. In a victorious life, when something bad happens, you know exactly how to overcome it. In a tranquil life, you're always afraid of the future. In a victorious life, you're certain that no matter what comes, you have the weapons to deal with it. Kolbe lived a victorious life, even in Auschwitz, even in the starvation bunker, even at the hour of his death, and you can too. Kolbe's consecration is done like this. You choose a special day, preferably August 15th, the Feast of the Assumption of Mary, or December 8th, the Feast of the Immaculate Conception, or August 14th, the Feast of St. Maximilian Kolbe. You fast from midnight the night before. Only water, nothing else. At noon, you kneel before an image of Mary, Mother of God, with a white candle lit, with your miraculous medal in your hands, and you say these exact words: O Immaculate One, Queen of heaven and earth, refuge of sinners and most loving mother, you who were chosen by God to crush the head of the serpent, I choose you today as my lady and my mother. I surrender myself totally to you. All that I am, all that I have, all that I will become, I place in your hands. Use me as a weapon against evil. Send me where you will. Make of me what you will. I accept any suffering, any mission, any sacrifice, as long as it is for your glory and for the salvation of souls. From this day forward, I no longer belong to myself. I am your soldier, your property, your weapon. Niepokalana, pray for us. Amen. Then you remain silent for 33 minutes, without praying, without thinking, just waiting. And Mary comes. You feel her presence. You feel the transformation happening. You feel that something has changed forever. From that moment on, you are no longer the same person. You are Mary's soldier, and your life becomes a supernatural adventure. But remember, there's no turning back. Once made, the consecration is eternal. Once a soldier, always a soldier. Kolbe did this at the age of 20 and never regretted it, not even when he was dying in the bunker. On the contrary, in his final moments, he whispered, "It was the best decision I ever made." And now you have the same opportunity. But before you decide, let me tell you the final part of Kolbe's vision, the part about what's coming, the part about why Mary's soldiers are so necessary now. In the third vision, Kolbe saw 3 waves of attack against the faith. The first wave he saw fulfilling itself in his own time. It was the wave of physical persecution, Nazism, communism, genocides, evil attacking the church openly and violently. The second wave he saw beginning decades later. It was the wave of internal corruption, evil entering the church itself. Scandals, divisions, doctrinal confusion, evil attacking the church from the inside out. But it was the third wave that impressed him the most, because it was the most subtle and the most dangerous. The third wave was the wave of total indifference. Evil would no longer need to attack the church, because people would simply stop caring. Faith would become irrelevant. God would become optional. Truth would become relative. And Kolbe saw that this third wave would happen through 3 specific instruments. The first instrument would be technology. Not that technology was bad, but it would be used to addict people, to completely occupy their minds, to make them no longer have time or interest in spiritual things. The second instrument would be education. Again, not that education was bad, but it would be used to teach that God does not exist. That religion is superstition, that science has explained everything and there is no more room for mystery. The third instrument would be culture, art, entertainment, social values. Everything would be used to normalize sin, to make what was always considered wrong become normal, and what was always considered right become outdated. And do you know what's most frightening? Kolbe saw that these three waves would culminate in a specific moment, a moment in which humanity would face a definitive choice, a choice between light and darkness, between God and evil, between life and death. And at that moment, the only ones who would remain firm would be Mary's soldiers, those who made the consecration, those who learned the words of power, those who prepared themselves spiritually. That moment is approaching. You feel it, don't you? This tension in the air, this feeling that something big is about to happen, this inexplicable urgency. It's not paranoia, it's prophecy being fulfilled. And you have been called to be part of the resistance. You have been chosen to be light in the darkness. You have been summoned to Mary's army. The question is, will you accept? Because if you accept, if you make the consecration, if you begin to use the words Kolbe taught, your life will never be the same. You will become a threat to the forces of evil, and they will try to attack you. But you will have Mary's complete protection, and nothing will be able to defeat you. You will become an instrument of miracles, and impossible things will begin to happen around you, but you will know it's not your merit. It's her power acting through you. You will become a beacon of hope, and desperate people will be drawn to you. But you will have the right words to speak, the right prayers to teach, the right strength to give. This is the legacy Kolbe left behind. This is the weapon he forged in the starvation bunker. This is the victory he won through death. And now this legacy is being offered to you. What will you do with it? If you've come this far, if you've heard all this, it's because you were chosen. Mary has already touched your heart. Kolbe has already whispered in your ear. The Holy Spirit has already moved in your soul. Now is the time to decide. Time to choose whether you want to remain just another ordinary person in the world, or if you want to become a soldier in the most powerful army that has ever existed. The army of Our Lady. The army that will win the final battle. The army you were called to lead. If you decide to accept, start today. Use the words I've taught you. Say the midnight prayer. Prepare for the consecration and share these words. Because Kolbe saw in his vision that the more people who knew, the stronger the army would become. Don't keep this knowledge to yourself. Spread it. Teach it, awaken other soldiers, because Mary's victory depends on each of us. And your mission began the moment you heard these words. Immaculate Mary, pray for us. And may St. Maximilian Kolbe intercede for all of us, soldiers of Mary, until the day of final victory. Amen.